Yeah, baby.
Yeah. The Mac is back. Back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Junikala, and today we're having a look at something by Silence+Other Sounds. Silence and Other Sounds. This is a bit of a mystery, but let's go with plus because it is there. We have the same issue with Slate and Ash, or Slate plus Ash, but cool name regardless. And today we're looking at Pompeii, Horns and Drums of Ancient Rome. And this seems to be a part of a series of instruments, or like a lineup of instruments, which is called let's do this in Italian because I speak fluently. Maleventum. Okay, that's the best I had. Otherwise, we have to go down the American route and say Maleventum. But Maleventum, let's go with that. That's my Latin take on it. So, what is it? In terms of the website right now, I can't seem to open the product page for that unless we click pre-order and then this opens up. It says it's released on December 8th, but as far as I can tell now, there's only the pre-order page going on for here. At least where I am right now, it's the 9th of December, so don't know what's going on with that, but hopefully everything is going well. But yeah, looking at the website, because we do have other Maleventum libraries here. They've got Maleventum 2, they got Maleventum SFX War Horns, and yeah, Maleventum 2 is Arcane Flutes of Native America. Are there more of these? No, not as far as I can tell here. But yeah, basically, it seems to be like a lineup of special instruments from different parts of the world, and obviously now we're talking about a part that doesn't exist anymore. Well, I mean, the part exists, but you know, the instruments of that time, that empire doesn't exist anymore, at least in the form that it was back then. But yeah, so SFX War Horns, Arcane Flutes of Native America, and then Pompeii is Horns and Drums of Ancient Rome. Cool. So I'm looking at the manual here that comes with the product. So they've collaborated with producer and ancient instrument expert Francesco Landucci to record a vast array of horns and drums in an original Roman water cistern. I'm not sure how that's pronounced. Let's actually look up what the heck that means. A tank for storing water, especially one supplying taps or as a part of a flushing toilet. Cool. Roman water cistern environment at the archaeological site of Cesena, Italy. Most have been captured with both close and room mics. That's cool. So if it is like a very special sounding space, makes sense. You want to actually use that instead of just being in a dead ass room in the middle of a forest in Finland. But cool. In terms of the stuff that's in here, we got horns, and in there we have Roman Cornu, Lituus. I'm probably butchering these names, but seeing these for the first time. Roman Tuba, Aulos, goat animal horns of various sizes and topologies. Flutes, whistles, and pan flutes. Syrinx is in clauses there. Drums and percussions wise, there's timpana, tintinabula. I'm sure that must be like a swear word in some language out there. So crotala and sistrum, So a lot of stuff here that is definitely pretty unfamiliar to the general public. And then we have weapons. Yes. We have weapons in the form of swords, spears, medals, helmets. So that's pretty cool. Then they have 15 Kontakt Instruments here. They speak a bit about their vision of what they do and how. Yeah, so primarily directed in kind of a TV, film, game composer, sound designer. You know, for those kind of purposes. And yeah, Dark Age, Ancient Mood are descriptions they use. Epic genre, fantasy, you know, post-horror, thriller, electronic and ambient music. So yeah, I mean, pretty much in line in terms of the stuff that I've checked out from them before. I really love Omen, as I've touched on before. Really liked Helen as well, although we didn't quite look at it in the way that it was supposed to, because there was some kind of preset snapshot installation issue, but still really good stuff. And actually I should do a video on Omen, because it is really cool and interesting. Really love those sounds. Want to be using those a lot. So in terms of the stuff that's in here, we got something called Horns Layers. Nice. So yeah, you layer stuff, as you can see on the screen. A, B, A, B. Very cool. Is there anything more that we want to look at here? There's some MPE stuff in here, so it's compatible in that way. So if you have one of those controllers, then it's probably pretty cool to play with that. Then you have a War Horns builders, which is nice. I love that kind of stuff. Although this is obviously not done in the, let's say, the Nordic style, because like my contact surface on a lot of these types of instruments comes more from like the Nordic, Scandinavian folk sound. So, you know, Vardruna is a group that I've mentioned many times on this channel. I love their music, and a lot of the stuff there, they use a lot of the instruments, especially like the horns, etc., are probably going to be pretty similar to these. I don't know, but really looking forward to having more of those sounds, because I do have some ambitions to write some music in that style. So definitely worth having these in the arsenal. Then you have solo instruments, some of the stuff we touched on. Aulos, Lituus, Roman tuba. Then you have sound effects, horns, and organic phrases. So those are also going to be useful for, you know, well, a bunch of use cases, but sound designers, game stuff, etc. Then you have the percussion. Okay, cool. So seems pretty straightforward, and we're just gonna pretty much jump in here to check it out. So first things first, Silence+Other Sounds did send me this copy. So first of all, thank you to them for doing that. I'm just adding our limiter here because I actually don't have it on here yet. So let's put that on there. So yeah, thanks for sending this over. And that being said, as always, all opinions are my own. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. And I'm not being paid to film or edit or anything else in terms of this video. In terms of what you'll be hearing today, it's only Pompeii in action. No added effects from my part. We only have the limiter on the master bus to make the level decent for this video and consistent. That being said, we'll probably have to adjust the limiter as we go along, because the levels of the different sounds tend to be fluctuating. So if you see me play with the mouse here and you don't see anything on the screen, that's what's happening. And if you hear any clipping, it's most likely the limiter, and if it's not, I'll certainly let you know, and if it is even the limiter, I'll probably let you know either way. So cool. That I think covers most of what we need to touch on. In terms of the plan for this, I'm just going to go through as much of it as possible and play around with it and see what happens. When you open this up, this is what you see in the folder. When you get this, it had kind of interesting installation instructions. Very simple, very quick, very straightforward, nothing complex. But stuff is in different folders. You need to extract them, put them in the right place, and that's pretty much it. So very easy, very simple. I'm not sure why it's done that way. I'm sure there is a technical explanation for that, but yeah, I mean, pretty fast and easy. Just make sure you put stuff in the right place. And yeah, here in the Maleventum Pompeii folder, you have Kontakt Instruments. Then you have MPE multis, which are the MPE stuff for those of you who have those controllers. Then you have the samples folder here, which we're not going to touch. So we're probably going to play with just the Kontakt Instruments here, and what we have opened up is the horns layer. So that's really the plan here. So cool. Let's start playing and probably get some kind of a level going. And again, this is a blind demo. I haven't played a single note of this yet, so you'll get my authentic, full reaction and thoughts on this. But let's try and get some kind of a level going and play this horns layer. It's a very like a soft puffy sound. We obviously hear some kind of glistening effect on there, or it could be a sample, but it sounds like an effect to me. So going to effects, because it gives like that kind of metallic sizzle there. It could be just an instrument as well. But yeah, I mean, on the effects, let's just briefly have a look at this layout here. So you got 4 pages here down below. You got main, edit, map, effects. In main, you have, seems like 2 sides. So it's kind of, it says split here. Oh, okay. So split actually splits the keyboard into 2 sections. On the left you have AB, on the right you have AB, and here you can presumably choose whatever you want to put in here, so you can layer your horns the way you want to do this. I don't tend to use this approach myself a lot. I mean, out of the box, if I get a great preset, for sure. Okay, there's quite a few of these. For sure, I'll use them. But usually I like to use individual instruments and then combine them as I see fit. But this is definitely great utility to have. So yeah, you can go in any one of these and change the horn that is being played. But touching on the effect, okay, so on the edit page, we'll come to the effects soon. Edit page, you got volume envelope, pretty simple. Low pass filter, high pass filter, low frequency oscillator, I would presume. Okay, cool. And then on the map, I presume this is, yeah, this is kind of MIDI mapping stuff. Probably this, if I saw correctly, important with the MPE stuff, which I would presume the creator is a fan of themselves. to include it here. And then on effects page, you seem to only have a convolution reverb control and nothing else. In the IR sample box, you have quite a few things here, different tempos, long tail, mid tail, short, and then you have stuff like grains, extreme leaves. So I would presume those are more specialized, but cool. In terms of these sounds, we're probably gonna just go into the folder here and play all of these. So actually, yeah, we're gonna start from the top here. This is Actus Reus, and this seems to have a split configuration here. Bit of limiter clipping there because the sound resonates every once in a while quite a bit. Definitely clipping there. That's a lot louder. That sounds pretty good. Once we figure out the level, so let's try and find a decent level for that. So the way the releases are configured here, it doesn't, if you go too fast, they overlap quite a bit and it sounds a bit, not to my taste, let's put it that way. The foundational sound of it, fantastic. I mean, again, a lot of these horns just remind me of a lot of the stuff I've heard on, for example, Bardruna, which is just fantastic sounding. Really loving the texture. They're really well captured, and they pierce through in a very nice way. Like it's a good balance of like sonic fidelity meeting emotion. So one of the things like I've noticed with the Silence+Other sounds libraries, depending on what stuff you're using, it's not like, again, if we're trying to play this in a legato fashion, it doesn't seem to be scripted or you know, worked in a way that is super realistic and fluent, that it's moving in a perfect legato fashion. Seems like they've sampled these, you know, really well individually, and then kind of within that methodology, yes, they've done it in a way that they do blend together really well. But in terms of what's happening under hood, doesn't seem like highly sophisticated in terms of the realism of the legato. So you have to keep that in mind. But that being said, you have to play with the releases a lot. Again, here we have pretty long releases, so that's really the first destination you want to go into. But it depends on your parts a lot, so you want to tweak that. So that's one of the things definitely notice here. In terms of the low end, really nice ambience and mood. Get a bit dense on the kind of percussive elements there, but I'm sure you can just bring those down if they get too dense. Cool, but let's jump into the next one. This is Actus Reus 2. Okay, yeah, I mean, that's a good example of the methodology they've deployed here, because it's brilliantly sampled, and I love, this is kind of similar to what you find in other libraries, like Slate and Ash. They have some of this kind of similar stuff, brilliantly individually sampled, performances, but the way they've done it, there's this sort of great sensibility in terms of not only the emotion it conveys and how well, let's go with that, the emotion it conveys, but then how it's going to blend with other notes actually being played with it. Again, there I would tweak the release, but that works surprisingly well out of the box. But you'd want to tune that to your actual parts and how fast you want it to release, etc. Also, what I like about these types of approaches is that they make you respond to them. It's not only you having some kind of a half-baked idea and writing a melody and then that's it. But when you have well done performances, samples, you listen to them and you go, okay, that's really cool, something I would have never thought of or even knew that was a thing. And then you listen to it as a composer, you respond to it, and you start creating something with it. So that's what I really love about these, because I don't know what it's going to do at every turn. And, most of these instruments are completely unfamiliar to me. So I'm just listening to them on their terms and how they're put together in these presets. And I'll go from there. And that's tremendously useful for someone like myself. Next preset called Adrian. Limiter clipping, let's pull that back a bit. Beautiful ambience, these kind of droney things work really well. More sort of effectized here in terms of the sound, so I would pull some of that back, maybe replace that top melody line with something else, but really nice sense of ambience and droney qualities. Okay, pronouncing this is going to be a bit of a stretch, but Aiquat, no, that can't be correct. Equat omne sinis. Let's go with that. Again, that's moves a lot nicer. Agrippina. Very interesting sound. That top end note, that I would guess that's the whistle horn here. Gets a bit aggressive. Also, we don't seem to have like level control via the mod wheel by default. Obviously, like automating volume is not going to be an issue, but that obviously would be a additional nice layer of control. Alea iacta est. Okay, this is going to be really rough on the pronunciation front. Beautiful soundscape, beautiful mood. I really especially love these low-end droney things that get sort of slightly gritty and modulating. They're very, very, very nice. Alessandria. Some resonant peaks coming out, that's why the limiter is clipping there, but really cool textures. Antro. Okay, so I'm gonna have a, yeah, there's no way we can do all of these because these are just the presets for this one instrument, so yeah, so we gotta discriminate here somehow. Let's do Antro since we opened it up. A lot of these work best at their sort of droney state because there's movement in the samples there. Really interesting textures and movement happening, so that would be probably the primary use case there for me. Ashes everywhere. 1. Limiter clipping. So as you can hear, there's a lot of stuff happening in the sample itself, just moving about. So that would be the first thing I, listen to and see how that inspires me and speaks to me. Let's do Athena. So we have some LFO action happening there. Let's do Barbarians Coming 1. Again, very cool textures, ambience, and sounds. What I do miss is that I could have a kind of a general dynamic control here, because again, once I play the notes, they sound great. But if I'm trying to do like a droney sustained thing, I'm gonna have to go in there and at the very least, adjust the level, although level control isn't exactly the same as the dynamic, you know, actually hearing the instrument get quieter. So if I just drone these out, they can get very tiring to the ear very fast. Okay, I should say obvious sounding. So that would be a control that I would like to have. Now you can basically get to a very good result with volume alone as well, but then I would have to individually control the levels for all of, well, at the very least, the ranges, different ranges that I'm working with. But here, like, the drone is fantastic, but I would love to have sort of more control over the fluctuations of it. Yeah, that higher horn gets sort of very static easily. Again, a number of ways. I would just, again, not probably use a bigger patch like this, but use it individually and then just control the level that way. But yeah, I love that low rumble there. It's very, very tastefully done, kind of subtle and ominous. Let's do Battle of Maleventum. And let's clip the limiter and let's try that again. Yeah, really cool textures there for sure. Call of the Cornu. Yeah, the slower moving stuff is definitely going to be your friend, or, you know, at least out of the box, because you don't have that, you know, legato control there. But again, go in there and adjust the releases. Let's do Colosseum. Kind of a more like a hybridized sound, so that's really good to hear. There's like this kind of ventures out into, you know, more modern takes of the sounds as well. Obviously we have the effects processing here throughout, so it's in that sense modernized, but definitely more like a synthetic sound on that one. Just more like bite and growl in the low end. Deed of the Gods. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear that it's a great selection of instruments, well sampled, interesting textures and performances. It just really comes down to how you put it together into an actual piece of music. Let's do Deus Ex Machina 1. Again here, venturing into, that could be done synthetically, maybe not the low end as well, but cool sound. Drunk Lituus. Bit of LFO. Again, you know, a lot of the melodies and the movements are actually in the sampling, so gotta listen to those. Flames of Rome. I'd be really interested in trying these with the MPE stuff, because it seems like a lot of this is like mapped in there. But in terms of the responsiveness here, out of the box, we don't really have a lot of control, and that would be definitely desirable. Gloria Mundi. And we are clipping. I love these textures. Horns of the Imperium. Really nice imaging and grit on that one. They are quite effects heavy out of the gate, which I think obviously that's a stylistic choice. Whether that's good for you out of the box or not depends on you. And also I think they used it to kind of glue a lot of this together. I would, you know, again, I would go at this sort of from a more individual instrument perspective, and then, you know, use effects, etc. Later on. But this clearly goes for, like, I mean, it's called horns layers, so it goes for that kind of a more cohesive, bigger sound. I think we are best off to move on from this folder. Let's go Pax Romana. A very interesting low end rumble there. Cool. So yeah, I mean, that's basically giving you a bunch of different soundscapes out of the box, and then you can jump in there and tweak as you wish. So that's definitely quite useful to have. Next up, there is a Warhorn Designer. And then there's a Warhorn Designer 2 as well. In terms of what the difference is there like... I don't know why it's in two different things. Then I would presume there is a difference in the design of the design of the designer itself. But probably don't have time to look into there. But let's see. This probably, again here, you have a bunch of different things to open up. Let's do hunt call 1. Does that? Yep, it does actually change stuff. Okay, that's very loud. Okay, so I actually really like this. As you can see, we got these 3 layers here, and that's the number that you have as far as I can tell. You can see cycle through these different samples. I really like this kind of a way of building things, because you can actually see what's happening, which is super useful. And then again, you can play with what's happening in the sample by combining it with other stuff. So this actually creates very rich textures. It can create a ton of realism depending on how you combine these, but these sound really good. Okay, so there you can see cycle through the sample to a point and then jump to an earlier point, and then when you release the key, it plays the release sample, or the part of the sample that is the release for that section. That's pretty interesting. As far as the interface is clear enough. This transparency approach is also, it's all right, but it gets a bit maybe hard to navigate, a bit maybe too light on the eyes. So I would make it a bit more contrasty. In terms of like, if I wanted to stop it from cycling through that, or change the cycle somehow, I have no idea how I would do that. So I got controls. They seem to be different for each one of these. Cool. Yeah, I mean, you can work these quite a bit to get because the realism really depends on the part that you're working on right now. So you got to go pretty detailed to make it, you know, hyper realistic. Certainly possible, but you will have to tweak things quite a bit. As far as I can tell, I mean, so okay. So you got horn 1, 2, and 3. Oh, sorry, 1, 2, and then you have a designer. Okay, so that explains why this looks different. Again, this is kind of like, this is very the opacity is pretty high on these texts. So here you can choose the actual horn you want to have. We have a lot different cornus here. There's 44, so no shortage in that department. Lituus up to 33, war tubas up to 46, and then 5 different animal horns. And I would presume, yes, this has the same selection. Then you have a designed, not designer, but designed layer. Barbarian horns, synth horns, explosion horns, hunt horns, lament horns. Synth horn, okay, there's a lot of stuff here. So that's kind of like an extra thing you throw in there, and these seem to be like more pre-designed, as it says, but you know, more produced for. Okay, so and I do apologize for my ignorance here, but I don't see how I could control the cycle of the sample there. So I would presume you can't control that, because for example, if I just wanted it to run through the sample and then stop, that seems like it's a very desirable feature from my perspective. I would love to have that in there, because it creates certain predictability, and also it allows you to kind of work. A lot of the time when you're using like phrases and stuff like that, you want it to naturally ring out as an instrument naturally would. And obviously here, when you release the note, it plays the release, but it's not quite the same thing. So sometimes I want to let it, you know, play all the way through and then release. But yeah, I don't know. Doesn't seem like I can at least see a way of doing that. So you got randomization for the menus. Yeah, and I will say that the release sample stuff works really well, so there's no criticism from that part. I would just love to have more control over how this engine works. Maybe it does, but I just can't seem to see any control for that. Note leak, boost, bright effects. Okay, cool. But the basic principle of this designer, I really love this. Okay, so War Horns Designer 2 is different based on the stuff that's in here. So this one has animal horns, Aulos, and then I think these Cornus must be the same, maybe, Lituus, and then pipes, which I don't think were in the Designer 1. So yeah, just different stuff. Probably there's maybe some kind of a size issue there. And then in the... yeah, you got the designed folder again. So let's randomize a few things here. You can also just go into this, again, this folder within the designer, which has a very, again, a good sizable selection of different stuff. Let's do evocative call. I really like the randomization here, because that can be just like quickly, you know, allow you to find something you like, and then you can obviously change and mute, etc. But that's a good control, because it's far faster than going through this very comprehensive selection of different sources. So, I mean, one of the things, like, it will take quite a bit of time to really grasp the richness and vastness of how many different textures and sounds this can produce, because you have so much of this source material. So you got to really play around with this to get a proper grasp on that. But yeah, but I really like that designer. I like that, the way it's put together. So next up, let's listen to Aulos solo read. So if we go to the side panel, yeah, this seems to be like a individual instrument thingy majingy. So let's play that a bit. Okay, so the mod wheel here doesn't actually change the level directly. Obviously it does in the sense that we get the different texture, but it's kind of like crossfading between this puffier sound more airy, sort of puffier, and then this higher dynamic is sort of more aggressive and piercing. So it's not like, it sounds like it's crossfading between the two textures, the different two sounds essentially. So again, here I would want to have more like a, because I don't use a lot of like pure level control. Well, I do that at the mixing phase, but when you're, because when you're dealing with an organic real instrument, it's not just that the dynamic is changing, like the dynamic is inseparably tied to volume as well, and you know that's where the most of the volume perception comes from anyway. So here, like, it doesn't exactly get quieter, it just gets the texture changes. So here I would have to automate the volume as well to kind of simulate that change in the dynamic there. This more sort of piercing top end dynamic sound, the legato plays better here. And first of all, I'm happy to hear that it has legato implementation. That plays pretty well here. And again, we can probably, can we actually adjust that? So okay, attack comes in soft and hard form. So again, there you hear the level pretty much stays quite similar, although we go softer in texture. So there I would need to additionally automate the level of this to kind of simulate that it's actually getting quieter. Whereas if the actual dynamic layer was also quieter in level. I actually like the soft attack maybe better. There, I think the legato sounds better on the soft one. Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay, cool. In legato, you have two modes. So you have slow and swift. We were playing swift so far. Let's play slow. That begins to clip a lot easier. It's a lot louder that way. I prefer the swift one. The slow doesn't feel super slow to my touch here. Definitely sounds different for sure. I wonder what, there's a big level difference here, so maybe something worth looking into. There's a nasal button here as well. Does change the sound. I'm not sure if it makes it more nasally. or less, but cool. Yeah, this is, I'm actually very pleased to see that they have these legato instruments here, because that has been like, a lot of the stuff I've played from them isn't done in that kind of a fashion. Here I would like to control the release there, because that would increase the realism of this quite a bit without just having to rely on reverb. But cool, yeah. Good stuff. Aulos drone reads layers. That was the limiter. Cool, yeah, you have a kind of tone control for a more round or breathy sound. That's good. In terms of, it has Aulos model selection, so again, quite a few different ones to select from here, but I would presume they're just, okay, so it's probably the model of the actual instrument. Interesting sounds. They're kind of like, remind me of other things. Louvre? I don't know. I really like that tone. Very, very nice. And obviously you have 5 of those to choose from. So this is really like the strength of these types of libraries. They have just so much textural and expressional scope that you can really, like, every single change here is actually a very drastic change in terms of how this is gonna sound and feel like. Cool. Let's move on, because otherwise, again, we're gonna spend a lot of time on these. Lituus ritual horn solo. Okay, that's very loud. Very cool. This is definitely the most like realistic and playable here. Again, we don't have anything mapped here to the mod wheel. So we have different attack types here. I presume if I press some of these keys here, yep, the purple ones change the attack type. This is really cool. Again, if you want to make these sound like super realistic and you know, well, make them more realistic, you've really got to go into detail here, and it doesn't kind of automatically map it just randomly here. So you gotta work it yourself. Then you have a, what does this control? Okay, legato bending is on or off. Cool, and then you have probably releases here on the yellow. Yep. So again, go ham on these. So there you can hear how much it affects it. You can obviously randomize a lot of this, just go crazy in your MIDI editor. But this is gonna be, yeah, this can be super realistic as long as you you know, program it quite a bit. I would love a version of this where it's kind of like there's a randomized automatic element to this. Like you could set some conditions of how often it does what, but I would love a version of this out of the box that you could just play and it kind of randomizes these elements quite a bit. So that would be really cool for lazy ass people like myself. And again, here I should emphasize that you're dealing with very specific instruments, so you should have an idea of what is doable or playable with these instruments, because that plays a lot into the realism. What I just played obviously doesn't, so something to keep in mind. And, you know, just play with them, listen to them, and go like, okay, I can do that, and probably shouldn't do that. But yeah, you really want to play with the attacks and releases quite a lot. And then in the dynamic department, you have swell up, swell down. So yeah, I mean, tweak that and you'll have something very realistic. Right, moving on to Roman tuba solo. Okay, so here we do have the dynamic control, and this sounds also, it's linked to the level of volume as well, even though it's a texturally different thing as well. Love those tiny little fluctuations in the pitch. There's a bit of like that, it sounds like there's an airy sample there which is separate from the actual core or the note of it, and it gets kind of like digital noisy sounding. It's not like a deal breaker, and it absolutely does affect the realism of it. Just gets a tad bit too much to the ear, but there are workarounds for that. Cool. Legato bending, nice. And then you have different attacks here. Again, not as comprehensive as for the previous one, but bend down, bend up. And that is outside of the legato binding. So if you start a new note, that's when it's going to do that. And you can also bend up, which again, these affect realism. Cool. Next up, Sound Effects War Horns. Let me just get an idea of where we are here. It's about halfway through. So let's press on. These are super cool. I really like these. Again, I would go for a lot of this type of stuff for like a dronier soundscape. So these would be good. Like I would probably use these more often than maybe the horn designer. What was it called? Let's check that up. Horns layers, because it had kind of these elements, but then a bunch of other stuff as well. I'd probably use these and kind of glue them together to form the kind of drony thing that I'd wanna have. So yeah, that's cool. We got convolution here. We got set global controls. Fair enough. We have the LFO here. Different waveforms for that. And cool. I'm trying to see. Okay, so pitch control. Again, with these you could do you could actually do like the fundamental note for your part as well. Let's see how well that fares. It actually sounds really good still, even with, you know, at -5. Let's do... I wonder why it doesn't... Beyond 7 it begins to do 0.99, but let's do 12. That's really cool. Obviously, with that pitching has kind of synthetic, hybridized qualities and elements to it, but very nice. Even that top end still sounds... I don't know if this is like a Kontakt 7 thing, because to me, with some of the stuff, the pitching has sounded a lot better. But again, I think this is available for Kontakt 6 as well, so probably not the case. And I don't know if this is like the... Probably some kind of a core, obviously, feature of Kontakt, but I don't know if there's differences in how you can do pitching in Kontakt. But very, very nice. Let's go all the way down 3 octaves. Yeah, that gets drony, dark ambient pretty fast. Really cool. And again, like I said, you can do pitch with this as well for your track. Obviously, you wouldn't want to have this audible pitching sound there. You would either do it for another track, because you can't... or, you know, automate it in some kind of a way that sounds realistic. But that's cool. I like that a lot. See if I can actually reset. No. Don't know what that's about, but cool. Yeah, I really like this. As far as I can tell, there's no... Like, this is the selection of it. So you got 2 octaves worth of these, which, you know, is a fair amount. I was expecting more based on... But yeah, I mean, yeah, based on what we saw earlier, because there's just so much stuff in here. I really like these. These probably are going to be one of the core things that I go to. I know it says sound effects, but these have, you know, detectable pitch. That's really good. And again, this gives me the kind of control that I'm looking for in libraries that are done in this kind of a style. Fantastic performance, fantastic texture. You get the actual sample performance there, and then I can work with it in ways that I want to. But that's really cool. Then we have something called Cornu Phrases. So let's play a few of these. Again, here's a great example of I could use that in a number of ways, layer it, pitch it in different ways. A lot of great texture, but it sustains one note, which means I can harmonize with it, which is super cool, and then I can play with the timing, the triggering of the sample to create all kinds of different things. It's a very simple way of working, but when you have well done samples, well done performances with interesting details, it becomes super expressive, and you could do a lot of cool stuff with that. Beautiful sounding horn. It's like a grittier broken trumpet. Obviously this goes a lot lower. Yeah, very cool. Flute phrases. Yeah, I mean, these are really cool. Super vast range of different stuff. And again, you can play with the pitch with that to create things. But I really, really like these. Very, very brilliantly performed and captured. Aulos Phrases. So these can definitely be pretty tough on the ear. Sounds like a drunken, softer bagpipe that has gone mad. But yeah, I mean, that's going to demand quite a bit from the listener. But obviously that is, again, contextual to what you're doing with it. Whistle phrases. So these phrases are pretty long. Again, great for the kind of stuff I described, because I could pitch that and then harmonize it, and that's cool. Shorter stuff would be good as well. And again, I wanted to play that to the end so you can hear the release sample there, which is, if I stop it in between, it's going to sound abrupt. But yeah, it is. They're obviously there. Yeah, these are actually super cool. I don't recall hearing a lot of these type of sample libraries ever, pretty much. So it's very nice to have something like that in the arsenal. This one is Syrinx Phrases. Again, this would be like a sound that I associate with like pan flutes and something, you know, South American, but it shows like how much, like so many of these different instruments from different eras and places and kind of a folk background, they have just so much overlap. So it's no wonder you hear something Nordic and then it sounds like, you know, something that comes apparently from ancient Rome or South America or something. Cool. Next up, I believe we have the percussion loops in here. Okay, so let's play some of those. Okay, level pretty high, so we gotta get this right first. So again, you have 3 different zones. You got red, yellow, orange. In the red, we have, you know, low-end focus stuff. Orange appears to be like shakers and jingly things. Yellow is something like, you know, well, it seems to be a mix of things. Kind of like mid clacks and hi-hat-ish type of things. So this is super cool. First of all, brilliantly sampled, beautifully performed. They're sampled in a very, like the fidelity is great, but they're still like super organic. There's no over treatment here, which is fantastic. Again, here I just randomly selected notes, something from the low, something from this orange, something from the yellow, and they just overlap tremendously nicely. I wonder whether they have a randomization control here, because that would be a really cool feature here as well. The one they had for one of the I think the War Horn designer thing. Let me just see before I speak anymore whether I can't see one, but that would be super cool. Just obviously that's kind of maybe challenging with this approach to do, but maybe there could be one more zone in the keyboard where it kind of allocates all of the samples. So if you click randomize, it chooses one from each, and then you can play, let's say, this, well, let's do this, or probably this key here, and then it would just play those randomized 3 layers, and then you can obviously turn those layers on or off. But that would be a very fast and easy and quick way of getting inspiration going. Obviously, not everybody wants to work that way, and these are there isn't such an overwhelming amount of things here that you can't just pick stuff. But yeah, that would be a cool feature, just to kind of latch on to something quickly and move from there. But let me play a few more of these. So yeah, good selection of different ideas. Again, what I love about this is very organic. So if you want to go for like a super raw realistic organic sound. You can do that. You don't have to do layers and layers of, like, undo layers of compression in effects settings or anything like that. I really like the sound of this, the way it's done. It's easily mixable. You can take it into any kind of a direction you want. Again, the low end here has a nice body, nice warmth to that. Again, not overdone, but just brilliantly recorded and sampled. Sits very nicely. And actually, these sound very quiet on their own, but they're actually really well balanced with the low end here. I mean, how good is that? Just a randomized thing that you play around with, but that grooves really nicely. This is probably my favorite thing in here so far. Really well done. In terms of the size and scope of this, it feels like a good amount of things, so you don't get overwhelmed. Would I want to have more here? I wouldn't mind that, because I mean, if we have, let's say, 1.5, a bit less of an octave of low samples, and I mean, this is pretty like 2 octaves of these high jangly things. They all seem to sound really, really great. So having more of them, I wouldn't mind, but it seems like a good selection there. Then we have Percussion's One Shots as well. So let's have a play with those. Let's first get our bearings here. So yeah, they are indeed one shots, as it states. To have these in a more sort of playable state, more realistic, more samples and round robins, and then have them be scripted and done in a way that they're super playable. Which all of this seems to respond very smoothly across this library, not just these ones, but like. Even here, obviously we only have the one shots, but it's nicely mapped to the velocity here. Obviously down low we don't have a super quiet, gentle touch. But a surprising amount of resolution at the top end here. So they're surprisingly playable, although we obviously don't have a tremendous amount of resolution there. And interestingly enough, this is so well, you have such a good selection of samples here that you could just play these around. They don't sound repetitive. They don't sound like they're just looping the same thing. Obviously we have different samples here, but also about like how you sample things, what's actually happening in there has a massive effect on the realism, not just having a bunch of samples, but what's actually happening in there. And that's why a lot of libraries, they can boast a massive amount of samples, but then you play it and it doesn't really sound super realistic. And then you have a 150 gig library that just doesn't, the size of it isn't justified in any sensible way. So this is actually really, really good to have. So you can actually just mix those, for example, with one another in different patterns, and it would sound perfectly fine. Same thing with these coins or whatever they are. And again, that kick, you could, you know, do your best performance take there, automate the level quite a bit, just here and there, tiny fluctuations, and that could actually make it, in a not too dense of a bass drum pattern, it would actually pass pretty nicely. Oh, that's nice. A lot of good imaging here. Odd configuration, so my playing is super shitty on this one. Like, if the kick is not super repetitive, if it's more sparsed out, that's actually pretty good for a one-shot. I love sounds like these, because it's like, what is that? Some kind of a... I don't know, that sounds more like a hi-hat in a bigger space, but I know this isn't very Roman, but yeah, my really crappy playing, I blame the layout, and also I had a workout today, which means my motor control is already gone. That's my excuse. Cool. Okay, I think we cycled through all of the different Kontakt instruments here. And that's going to actually bring us to a close here. So let me actually keep this open, and let's pull this back a bit so we can kind of sum up this content here, because I like to look at that to actually have a better memory of what was happening in here. So first things first, my favorite things, I really love the percussion loops. Really well done, super organic, super just, you know, raw, but still brilliantly performed and sampled. So if and when I want to mix them, they just respond to things really nicely because they're well recorded and unspoiled, really. But yeah, nice selection of different creative patterns and ideas there. Would I like to have more of more scope for that loop library? Yeah, I would love that, but it offers a pretty good selection there. One shots were surprisingly good, so even though they're not like high res in terms of multiple velocities, etc., they work probably as good as one shots can, in my experience. So that's nice. But yeah, I really like the percussion there, and the imaging is also really nice on those. Kind of, it just speaks to being well tracked in an interesting space. So that was really good. I really loved a lot of these phrases, which is kind of a rare thing for me to say, because like if we think about, let's say, vocal phrases, which is the phrase thing that I probably use the most, it's a bit different compared to what they've done here, because vocal phrases, I would use them as kind of spice here and there to emphasize a part, or maybe stitch them together to aim for a melody idea that I have in my head. And with a good library with phrases done in a good way, that is actually possible. And but this one, they have a lot of they're not actually phrases in many situations, because they're sustained notes with some fluctuation, textural stuff, slight pitch fluctuations, but a lot of them were pretty much sustained notes, which make me, for the most part, well, not for the most part, but for a lot of them were sustained notes, which means I can use them to harmonize things, which makes me think I would actually like to have like a phrases designer, phrases engine here, where I could throw those in and kind of spin them around in ways that I want to do them. Like something that comes to mind is, you know, Heaviosity's, I don't know what to call them, but a lot of the libraries like Vocalese and what did I check out last time? I had a look at Scoring Guitars 2, which again has that, like, these individual notes that kind of sustain a note or have a pitch, but they have like a pattern. So if I can sort of map those across the keyboard, I can actually harmonize, you know, and combine them, stitch them together in ways that can be interesting, and then I can mess with the sample start time and etc. to create even more patterns and textures. I would love to see something like that done with the phrases here, because they seem very modular to me. They seem very flexible in that way. So that would actually be super cool to see and hear here, like a phrases designer or phrases builder or a phrases engine of some sort. But again, you can do that manually in your DAW, so it's kind of like a convenience preference kind of thing. But obviously having that would be amazing. Yeah, really liked those. Pretty much the sound effect War Horns were in that same category. Yeah, just like, yeah, pretty similar in that regard compared to the phrases. In terms of the solo things, first of all, happy to hear that they have like a legato implementation. Are they super realistic? I think the Roman tuba solo was, or the Lituus ritual horn solo. I don't remember which one it was. Check them out from the timestamps, but one of them was definitely more realistic than the other. They had more of those different attack samples, different release samples, that when you play with those, again, they affect the immersion and realism a lot. And also the way it was sampled and how it just comes together as an instrument just sounds more realistic out of the gate, so probably just easier to do from that perspective. What was I going to say regarding that? Yeah, like a version of that where the different attack types and release types, and maybe the legato, there was like a speed or you know, glide control for that. Having a version of that where it randomizes those automatically, so that I can just play and it kind of randomizes some of those elements continuously. That would be really cool, because that would create like a more instantly playable, realistic instrument out of the box for lazy people like myself, instead of having to program all the attacks and releases you know, yourself separately. Obviously that gives you more control, and we love to have that as composers, but also having that other option would be great. And if it was sort of balanced really well, it could remain super playable and intuitive for the majority of your needs. So that would be really cool. And yeah, then we had the War Horn designer, which I actually liked a lot. That was kind of like a version of what I would love to hear for the phrase implementation as well. But I like that kind of structure and layout. Love the randomization function there, so you can find out stuff really, like find new ideas really, really fast, which is cool. More control over how the engine is cycling through the samples, whether it just plays them through from beginning till end and not loop. That would be cool. If it's there, I apologize, I just don't see it. But yeah, that's kind of like a version of the take that I would love to see for the phrases. And the horns layers, you get some super immersive stuff right out of the box, out of the gate, which is super nice. And yeah, I mean, there were a ton of presets. We only scratched the surface, but you get like cinematic, beautiful soundscapes out of that, right out of the gate. A lot of similarities across them, which I would probably put those taking place because of the effects processing that tends to be kind of similar across the samples. So you might get a lot of like repetitiveness there from that perspective. But again, you can just turn those off and also tweak to your heart's desire, because there are so many source samples for these, again, which is a super big strength for a library like this, especially when it's so specialized, because you do have just so many options to play with. And every single one of those samples or styles of how they're sampled is different. So you can stitch them and combine them to create that realism and texture that you're looking for. I did have one last thing I wanted to touch on regarding that layers thing. Yeah, I mean, more control over more motion, because a lot, like someone like myself would use those as droney type of things. So I would love to have more sort of control from the engine in terms of how it would, adjust the level. Well, I mean, the level of the sample that I'm playing, creating sort of more motion in there. Again, we do have this LFO, which I'm sure you can, use to create something similar. But out of the gate, I would love to see something more sort of livelier there, because otherwise it gets a bit static, and then I would have to actually manually again do more work, which I don't want to do as a lazy composer, but I should say lazy engineer, I guess. But yeah, those are really, I think that summarizes pretty much my perspective on a lot of these. But fantastic tool to have in your toolkit. So if you're obviously, this was done in the Roman style, but again, this will work for so many different parts of the world, or different times even of the world, because a lot of these kind of folk-ish instruments have a lot of overlapping textures and tones. So you can definitely use this for a number of other things. So don't be distracted by the fact that it's called Roman in that regard. But yeah, fantastic toolkit. And again, if you want to get like the most out of this, you would spend a lot of time going through all of these individual textures, as you can see, to find the stuff you love that you want to repetitively use, and create the kind of stuff you want to create. So I think that's a big part of it, which is obviously something we can't demonstrate in a long ass video like this. But cool. I think that just about wraps it up before I pass the fuck out after this long ass day. But again, thank you to Silence+Other Sounds for sending this over. Pleasure to check this out and have this in the arsenal. A lot of really cool stuff, which will be super useful for me one day when I finally hopefully get to write some of the stuff that I have in my head that can utilize this. For those of you watching, if you have this back home or at your studio, let me know what you think. Let me know what I missed, and etc. All that usual stuff. And if you are just watching or listening, let me know what you think of this library or this video down in the comments. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.